Hello and welcome to A Little Crafting. My name is Annie and I'm recording this podcast from Surrey in the UK. It's Saturday the 28th of November and this is my bi-weekly podcast where I talk about all the things that I've been making over the last couple of weeks. So let's start with what I'm wearing this week. This is my Georgetown cardigan, which is patterned by Hannah Fettig. It's knit in Durarium Natura Gilliatt, I think is how it's pronounced, in the Poivre et Sel colourway. And that is a kind of off-white, I would say, with some kind of speckles of slightly darker colour. And it just goes with everything pretty much. Now let me show you kind of the colour a bit more. There you go, you can see, so this cardigan I wear all the time. It's the type of cardigan that is just like a warm hug, so I pop it on whenever I'm cold, particularly when I'm working. As it's from home at the moment, I just have this on the back of my chair and I just put it on. So I'm basically wearing it every day at the moment, which means it has pilled quite a bit. But I'll just get the gleaner out and take off some of those pills soon. And it's almost definitely my most worn knit. So I'm really pleased with the way it turned out. I knit it in February. It's actually quite long, so I'll stand up and show you. It sort of goes down to my lower hip, I would say. But I really enjoy the shawl collar because, like I said, it makes it a bit like a warm hug. I almost feel like I should get a shawl pin or something so that I can attach across here. But to be honest, it's great for what I want it for. Like I said, it goes with absolutely everything. I just wear it with jeans and a t-shirt quite happily, and it definitely serves its purpose. I actually knit it in preparation for my skiing holiday in March, which didn't really go ahead as we planned, but it's certainly the best thing that I've knit in terms of wearability. With regards to the yarn, so you know I'm already a fan of Durarium Natura if you've watched other podcasts by me, but Gilliatt is kind of the Aran worsted weight yarn, and it's 100% organic merino, carded merino. So it's slightly rustic, I would say, as in it's non-superwash, but it's still really soft and just one of my absolute favourite yarns. It's essentially the Aran worsted version of Ulysse, which I use quite a lot for weaving and for other projects. And I used 4.5 balls of the Gilliatt yarn and knit it in size 3. Let's move on to what I'm knitting at the moment. So it's been 2 weeks since our last podcast, and I've actually done quite a lot of knitting, but I'll show you why that's a bit of a caveat in a second. So the first thing that I've done a bit of work on, not much, is my Star Flanket blanket by Stephen West, which I'm knitting out of Willow and Lark Ramble, which is a Lovecrafts brand. So you can probably find Ramble on the Lovecrafts website. It's a DK yarn, and I'm knitting it in 4 different colours. So the grey, which is that colour, is colour 137, just called grey. 112 is the orange I'm using. 102 is the cream. And 135 is the blue. So I'll show you where I've got to, although as this is a circular blanket, it's a little bit difficult to actually show you the whole thing at the moment because my needles frankly just aren't long enough, my needle cords. So I should probably see if I can get a really long one or attach a couple together to help with that. But basically, try not to actually drop all the stitches off the needles. I have the entire star section at the centre, I did have some trouble attaching the first parallelogram to the 8th, but mattress stitch seemed to work in the end. It was just a bit confusing on the pattern, and I think a few other people on Ravelry had the same kind of issue. So I've got my whole centre all done. Apologies, you've got ends and things all over the place. I will weave in the ends at some point when I feel like it. Probably not as I go, I don't think. And then what I've done around the edge of that is just a bit of the next section. I'll show you a bit better. There you go. So just a few rows. It took me a really long time to pick up all the stitches, and I think there's 550 odd now on the needles. So a round takes a very long time, which means this will probably be the kind of project that I go, you know, if I've got a spare hour or so, and I don't feel like knitting anything else, I'll just pick up this and do a row or two to get it moving. But I'd really like to have this done at some point in the winter so that we can actually make use of it. And the idea is to have it on the back of my sofa so that when we're cold we can just grab it, and my husband and I can just grab it and put it over our legs to keep us warm. Excited to have it done. Not so excited about the amount of stitches that I have on the needles at the moment, especially because currently this is the smallest it's going to be, and it's going to keep on growing and growing and growing outwards. So I get the feeling I won't be doing my if you start a row finish a row rule for that one. I'll probably be stopping mid-row quite a lot of the time. I'm knitting this on my Higher Sharps interchangeable set on 3.5mm needles. Like I've said before, I tend to have to go down a needle size because my knitting has become incredibly loose over the years, so especially since using metal needles. So that's probably not what a regular knitter would use for knitting DK yarn. However, you should always swatch and just check what gauge you're getting as well. On something like this one, if you were going to try and do the staff blanket, I would suggest that you knit one of the parallelograms and then check your gauge and see how that works out. Moving on to what I've also been knitting. So next up is my lighter shawl, which I've mentioned in the podcast before. So this is a brioche shawl by Simone Kerrett, and I am knitting it in two different yarns. One is Sassy Pants by Primrose Yarn Co. in their sport weight base, which is Rose Sport, I think, and the other is Madeline Tosh Work Sock, which is also a sport weight in the Arctic, which is a bright blue. And you'll see I've done quite a bit of the brioche actually this time. So I'll just pop it in front of my face. So I think last time I showed this I'd only done the start section, so the garter ridges, and then maybe 1 or 2 rows of the brioche, but you can now really start to see the sort of V-shaped pattern that's appearing. And I do really like the effect of this. The Sassy Pants colour is so lovely and speckled that it gives a really nice contrast to the bright blue, and I like the fact that it's not the same in every section, so you can see parts of it have way more pink. If I move along here, you've got some kind of lighter sections of blue that really offset nicely to the bright blue. And then on the inside, and obviously the garter isn't actually reversible really, but I think you could wear it on either side. You can see that on the inside it's got the blue popping out and the speckled colour as the kind of offset colour. Yeah, really enjoying this one. It does take a while to knit a brioche row because you have to knit it twice, so once with each colour, in order to actually get the full row working. But it is really nice once you get going to just kind of repeat, and it just flows, to be honest. I'm hoping to finish this one fairly soon before I start any other shawls, otherwise I feel like I'm going to get a bit of cast-on-itis, as is explained by other podcasters. So basically where I just keep casting on things, but ultimately I'm going to run out of needles eventually, especially when I use a lot of the same size, so 3.5mm needles for a lot of my projects. So that is the lighter shawl, and it's coming along really nicely. And finally, with knitting, I'd like to talk to you about the Owls sweater that I'm knitting for my friend. So this, I've been doing a lot on this one, but I'll explain to you why I've done a lot and actually not got very far. So I had to do some calculations because I'm using Drops in a Pool, which is actually an Aran weight yarn, but the pattern is designed for chunky. So I did a lot of maths, did a swatch, thought I'd worked everything out, and then started knitting. However, what I found is that my gauge has actually loosened up on a larger circumference. So I've done basically what is the whole of the bottom of the body, but it's enormous relative to my best friend's size. So I think I had a look at this against myself and thought, yeah, this is about double the size of what she would probably need because she's quite small. So what I've done since then is I've done another gauge swatch. I've worked out again all of the maths that I need based on using smaller needles and also going down a couple of sizes in the pattern. And I've started knitting from a different ball. And the reason I was doing that is because I did want to show you this and say, this is how much knitting I've done before I show you what I've actually achieved on the jumper. So let me show you where I am in reality. And you'll see all I've really done is a bit of ribbing and started the main body section. I really hope it's the right size now, basically. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to start again. I'm thinking I might just measure my gauge and work out the circumference at the moment of the sweater to see if that would fit about right once it's blocked. I did make the mistake before of just carrying on and thinking, no, it'll be fine. Yeah, it might look a bit big, but I'm sure it'll be okay once it's off the needles. Things can be a bit deceptive when they're on a circular needle as well, because they tend to get scrunched up. But I did eventually decide, okay, I've got to the point where I do definitely think this is too big, so I blocked it and then realised that, yeah, it definitely was. So this time I'm knitting it on 4mm needles. I'm knitting the 6th size. Let's see if that works. I'll keep you updated on my podcast every couple of weeks so you can see my progress. But yeah, I've had a couple of fails this week. I'll speak about another one later on. But yeah, I've got Dungeons and Dragons later, so I'll be able to probably make some good progress on that, and fingers crossed it will be ready for her for Christmas. She's very excited to have it, so yeah. There we go. Right, and that is all the knitting I have for today. So I haven't actually woven anything extra since last time. However, what I have been doing is trying to work out how to sew my woven fabric. Because long term, I want to be able to make bags for my family for Christmas. Or not so long term now, actually. It's December on Tuesday, so I don't have long. But I have got a few bits of woven fabric ready to be able to make into bags. And I chose a pattern by Can Do, which is the zipper pouch pattern, and that can be found on Etsy. I'll pop a link in the description below. And I first want to be able to work out how to cut my weaving without it unraveling, which seems like a really scary thing to do, a little bit like cutting your knitting, I think. So I started doing that this week, and I've tried to watch a video by Kelly Casanova, who's a really good weaving tutorial teacher. So I recommend you watch her if you do have any weaving questions, or you're learning new skills in weaving, especially on a rigid head or loom like mine. So what I've done is I did try to cut some scrap knitting, and it did unravel a bit. But what I bought myself recently is a walking foot for my sewing machine, so that it can hold both sides of the woven fabric evenly, and it effectively pulls the top and the bottom through the sewing machine at the same time. And I did make some good progress sewing around the edges, so I'm not sure you'll be able to see very well. Let me have a try. So yeah, I do have a section that's sewed down just here. You can see the other side has unraveled a bit, so I did it about 3 bars in, and it seems to work really well. So I've done kind of stitching all round this edge, and this is a bit of scrap, but I could actually make a bag out of this because I do have enough fabric. I've got this and another section of fabric the same size. However, what has happened since I did this is that my needle keeps breaking on my sewing machine, on the walking foot. So what it seems to be doing is something is shifting, and then the needle is hitting the back of the walking foot and then snapping, or it's hitting the back and I'm stopping because I know that sound now. So it's making me really worried about using that. I have asked online on the Sewing for Weavers Facebook group, which I find a really useful resource, and a lot of people have got back to me with different suggestions. So my plan for this weekend is actually to start having a go with their suggestions to see if I can find a solution for that, because in theory the walking foot should work for my machine. It's a Singer walking foot on a Singer machine. I've checked the specs, my machine is included in the compatible ones. So I think it's either something that I'm doing or the way that the needle and the walking foot have been set up. But it does seem really strange that I was able to do stitching all the way around here before anything went wrong, and now every time I turn it on and start trying, 3 stitches in it just goes, nope, I'm not sewing anymore, or I break the needle, which is going to cost me quite a lot if I keep doing that. I'll let you know what my progress is on that. If you know anything about walking feet and sewing machines and about this issue, please do suggest things if you know of any solutions in the comments down below. And eventually I'll get there, but I have to say I get a bit frustrated with sewing, especially with my sewing machine, because I expect the sewing with my sewing machine to not take very long, and then hours later I still haven't achieved what I want. But maybe that's a bit about the fact that I don't have that much experience, and also that it's not as kind of, I suppose it's not as repetitive as knitting, where you can just get into the flow and you knit and you can just carry on. You're also relying on other things like cutting things, then using your sewing machine. You're relying on your sewing machine to work rather than a set of needles that aren't complicated at all. So I'm finding it a bit difficult. I did talk to my friend last weekend about sewing and what I could do to get the hang of it with my sewing machine, and I think I might make a quilt in the new year, because that seems like a good way to get practice with straight lines, understand my sewing machine a bit more, and just do lots more sewing on something very simple rather than me trying to make bags all the time. So that's where we are with that. Fingers crossed I'll get the hang of it, and I would let you know next time. Now that's all the sewing and weaving I have for this week, so I'm just going to move on to acquisitions. So I have been buying a little bit more yarn. I can't help myself at the moment. There's so many things that have just cropped up that I just go, oh, that would be really good to try. And one of those things is, again, surprise, surprise, how predictable am I? It's the new Gilliatt colourway by Darerum Natura. Just grab it. And that is eucalyptus. So I'll just pop it in front of my face so that you can see. I'm not sure it's coming out quite right. It is more green than turquoise, I would say. So it's almost like a really light sage colour. Yeah, it looks really lovely. And there's the label for you. You can see that. So obviously I knit this cardigan out of Gilliatt. What I'm going to use these balls for is actually to knit a nurtured sweater by Andrea Mowry, who is also Ray Renee Knits. I think that's her username. So I've got 3 balls of Gilliatt, and they are 250 meters per 100 grams. So I've got 1,000 meters, basically. A kilometre of yarn. Never thought of it like that before. That actually feels like a lot of yarn when you think about it in distance. Yikes. Okay. So yeah, excited to cast that one, but I do have some other projects that are coming. I just got a bit eager to get this new colourway when it turned up. I think it will be a really nice colour. Actually looks really good with the poivre sel as well. To have a lovely nurtured sweater out of. Again, another cosy one. So when I was buying that from Great British Yarns, which is my chosen retailer for Darerum Natura yarns, I also saw that they were offering a kind of mystery knit along, advent knit along, for some accessories in Darerum Natura Ulysse. So essentially what you do is you buy the set, and that comes in a lovely Great British Yarns bag. So I do really love this retailer overall. Buy all my Darerum Natura from there and other things. And inside are all of these colours of Darerum Natura Ulysse, plus a couple of little gifts. So I don't know at what point I'll open them, but because I bought this kit, what will happen is that I'll get an email every day of Advent with a new section of the pattern, and presumably I'll get instructions as to when to open the other little gifts. Otherwise I might have to save them until Christmas Eve or something like that as a treat. Yeah, but I think it's really nice to receive this kind of selection of colours, because there are lots of colours in here that I wouldn't normally use. So apologies for the crinkling. So for example, this green, I would not normally go for a colour that's that vivid in terms of green. And then the brown actually is a really nice colour, and I would never have thought to buy something like that and make anything out of it. And then I'm generally adverse to yellow, so anything that's kind of mustard just doesn't suit me normally, but I think in something that's colour work that this is going to be, it might actually be a really nice little pop of a different colour in something else. And otherwise, most of these colours are probably ones I've used before. I think that must be Baleine Bleu, which is the blue one. This one is Plume, which is the kind of teal colour. This one is that Poivre Sel? I think so. It's a bit darker than my cardigan. This one I think is Dragon. And then This one's one of my favourite colours, which is Fauve as well. So yeah, a really nice selection of different colours. I'm looking forward to seeing what the pattern is like, and excited to start knitting my colourwork accessories on the 1st of December. And finally in acquisitions, I saw that Mina Philip of Knitting Expat and Knitting Expat Designs brought out a book a couple of weeks ago, which is Persian cowls, and I was really intrigued by this because she's writing it from the perspective of her Iranian heritage, her childhood, kind of the rugs that she and her family owned and still own, that are Persian rugs, and kind of the history behind them. And not only did I love the patterns, but also I really like to learn about different cultures and things like that, so I think it's a really nice way of portraying that, but also providing a pattern book. So I did end up ordering both the ebook and a physical copy of the book online on her Etsy shop, and the physical copy arrived the other day, and she's signed it and everything, so I think it's a really special thing to have. I'll show you the book. So this is it. And just to give you a little read of the back, in her first book, Cowls, a colourwork source book inspired by Persia, Mina Philip explores the Iranian heritage and the motifs found in Persian woven rugs. Mina uses her any gauge approach, which seems really interesting. I really want to know more about how that works, to create a colourwork cowl source book using yarns from fingering weight to bulky. Knitters can find their perfect combination of yarn, gauge and shape from the many options Mina presents, and can even design their own using the calculations and the knitting graph paper provided. It's a 78-page full colour book which contains information on techniques and links to further resources, as well as 12 full patterns to make the stunning colourful cowls featured in the collection. I'm really looking forward to knitting some of these cowls when I have a bit more time, maybe, aside from all the projects that I already have. And I'm super happy to have this. Apologies for the crinkling. I wanted to leave this in the plastic wrap just to keep it safe because it is really special. So really happy to have that, and looking forward to actually having a read as well. Maybe over the Christmas period when I have a few days. That is all in terms of knitting and acquisition content. With regards to other things I wanted to talk about, I've obviously got Advent starting on the 1st of December, which is Tuesday. I do want to do Vlogmas, so I'm going to attempt that. Fingers crossed I'll be able to do it every day. I'm hoping to just go for walks with my camera on, and talk a bit about what I've been doing in the day, as well as open my Advent minis. I don't want to show the Great British Yarns make along just in case people who are watching are behind, so I'll see how that goes. If I can, I might just show the colours that I'm using, and a bit of a preview rather than anything to do with what I'm actually knitting for it. So I'm hoping that will all work out. And finally, I did just want to have a quick chat about other things. So we're still in lockdown in the UK until Tuesday, or Wednesday the 2nd is when the lockdown stops. So I have been doing a lot more crafting, also been eating a lot more and not doing so much exercise, but I'm really happy to see that our climbing gym is opening on Wednesday. So we'll be going back to that on Wednesday. Climbing is such a good thing for my mental health, because it allows me really to switch off from everything else that I'm thinking about. You have to concentrate so much on what your hands and your feet and your body are doing and what you're doing next, and the puzzle of the route on the wall, that actually you don't have time to think about anything else, which is fantastic. And it's great exercise. It's all over body exercise, including core. So with the added satisfaction of actually making it to the top of the route, it's just something that I've been missing so much the past few weeks, especially as it gets darker. So I'm really excited to get back to that. I also think my body will be happier as well because I haven't been doing much at all. But we'll see how rusty I am when I get back on the wall. At the moment, my husband and I are watching the Moscow European Championships, where the UK have a chance to get another couple of places at the Olympics next year, which my husband and I will be going to in Tokyo. So jumping up and down a lot in our living room, cheering for Molly and Will, who are our Team GB contenders. So that's been great fun, doing a bit of vicarious climbing in a way. And yeah, otherwise just working from home, thinking about Christmas now. I'm going to be buying a lot of Christmas lights and decorations this year because I'm really feeling in the Christmas spirit, as I have nothing else to look forward to at the moment. And we'll probably be having my parents around for Christmas Day because that seems to be what we're going to be able to do. We're in tier 2, I think, when the lockdown eases here. So fingers crossed all of the COVID cases will start to be reducing and the vaccines will go out to people soon and we'll be back to normal, or closer to normal anyway, in 2021. That's all I had to say really. I'll probably be back to the podcast in a couple of weeks with some more things to show you, and have a lovely time over the next 2 weeks. I will see you soon. Thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you can, and my Ravelry, if you want to follow me on Ravelry, is Ankiwoo, and Instagram is cinnamonswirl.designs. I'll put any links to things that I've mentioned down below in the show notes. Thanks so much. Bye.